Good afternoon, or if you're watching on the live or the recording, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching this. It is Chris Carlin from Master Your Money Now in conjunction with Perla, and we're so excited to present to you the Rags to Riches Roadmap, the 5 steps to abundant wealth. If this is the first time you've met me or listened to me, and welcome. I'm so grateful that you've given up your Wednesday lunchtime or an hour of your time to have a listen to what I have to say about finance and financial planning and how we can help you with your personal situation. We're just getting started. Just ticked over 12:30, so we'll give it 30 seconds for a few more people to join. We do have over 300 people registered, which is very, very exciting. But while we're doing that, make sure, first and foremost, put in the comments. I'd love to know where you are from and what you're looking to get out of today's session or webinar. And also make sure you give us a like and a follow. It helps the YouTube algorithm to get this presentation out to more people. I think this information is something that everyone should know about. And so if you could help me get more of that information out to as many hands as possible, that would be greatly appreciated. And also finally, make sure you give us a follow on your favorite social media platform, Instagram, TikTok, or LinkedIn. We want to deliver more content like this, and we're very excited to do that in 2023, which is only 7 to 8 weeks away. It is very close indeed. So awesome stuff. So, like I said, put your comments in the chat. There is about a 30-second delay between when I'm talking and when it appears on your screen. So if I'm a bit slow responding, that would be why. I am distributing this from Geelong. In Australia, it is freezing cold down here, as per usual Victorian weather, but hopefully the good weather comes soon. So, excellent stuff. Well, why don't we get started? And so let me go to my screen and let's go through this webinar. So, if you could let me know if you could see the slides, that would be fantastic. I'd love to see your comments in there as well. So what we want to do is, so what are we going to cover? Why am I doing this presentation? I think that's obviously very, very important as to why I'm doing this presentation, because I want to help you. The 5 R's in the Rags to Riches Roadmap, 5 things that I want you to be focusing on if you want to build your wealth both now and into 2023, and then talk about your next move as well. We've got a few options there which may be of interest to you. So make sure you are taking notes. If you're watching the recording, stop and start this video. We do have a lot of content that we do need to cover. So, awesome stuff. So, I can see a few comments coming through. Hello, Blair from Melbourne. Rian, also from Melbourne. It's good to know that I'm not the only Victorians freezing down here as well. So, awesome stuff. Let's go through it. Again, obviously, because we're dealing with finance, I am a financial planner. I do have to put the legal disclaimer. This is what we call general advice. So general advice I define as what you can do. Okay? Obviously, I don't know you yet. Hopefully that will change. But I don't know you. Don't know your personal situation. If you did want personal advice, we can talk about that afterwards and how we can help you. So that would be personal advice. So just general advice only. Hello, Andrew from Sydney, and hello, Stephanie from Melbourne, and Joanne's from sunny Brisbane. Of course, there you have to be one very warm Queenslander here. So who am I? I'm a financial planner and mortgage broker. I've been in the business for 11 years now, specialising in helping everyday millennials, mainly nurses and teachers. My wife's a nurse and my parents are teachers, with their financial situation. I'm married to my wife, Natalie, and I've got 2 daughters, Charlotte and Chelsea, who are both under 2 years old. So if I've got some bags under my eyes, you'll know why. So excellent stuff. So Master Your Money Now, again, founded 4.5 years ago. Financial advice, for those who don't know, is generally set aside for the ultra old and the ultra rich, is what I'd like to call it. But I felt there needed to be a better way. And I wanted something that I could help my mates with their finances. I'm a millennial, I'm 33, the average age of our clients is about 34, 35. That's who we've been targeting to. And now we've got 131 ongoing clients, specialising in millennial nurses and teachers. Even though we're based in Geelong, we do have clients Australia-wide. So if you want to find out more, check out our website and you can book in a complimentary chat with our team. I'll talk about that a bit later. Cool, and this is our team as it currently stands at the moment. And so it's not just me that's helping you. So what is this webinar and what is it not? What this webinar is, it's a rags to riches story is used to describe a person's rise from a state of extreme poverty to great wealth. A high-level step-by-step guide to go from rags to riches, or flipping burgers to the Ferrari is another one I like to say. Providing you the ability to know where you are now and where you need to be. I think that's just so crucial, is this, it doesn't matter where you are now. I've started, I went through, as a teenager, learned this stuff, young adult, university, did all those kind of things. I'm starting where a lot of you are starting now, just a bit further on. So it doesn't matter where you start in now, it's where you are going, which is what really matters. The worst client that I've ever encountered that we worked with had, I think, $61,000 in credit card debt. So if you don't have $61,000 in credit card debt, congratulations, you are actually ahead of other people that we have helped. So this is a guide you can utilize to build wealth by yourself or with the assistance of others. I generally find most people think they need more information. And I actually think that's false. I don't think you need more information. I think you need less. There's so much information out there. There's podcasts, books, blogs, webinars, so much information out there. My job is not to give you more information, because I think that just adds to the confusion and adds to the noise. What I want to do is to cut through that noise and show you step by step, focused, targeted information on what you should be doing to help you with your finances. And that's hopefully what we can get through today. What this webinar is not, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. There's no shortcuts to this. It is hard work. It's not a personalised financial plan. We've mentioned that at the moment. Certainly don't want this to be a sales pitch. I want you to be full of content for you. And it's not rocket science either. We're not going to be talking about, Fibonacci lines in studying charts in crypto or anything like that. That's not what we're going to do. It's not rocket science, but also it's not simple either. It's easy, but it's not simple. There's a big difference between the two. So, awesome. Well, and this is what I said before. We know we should be doing something. We just don't know what. We need someone to cut through all the noise and show you step by step as to what you would be doing. So just in the comments there, and I'm well aware of the lag, which is probably a good 30 to 60 seconds, why do you want to be wealthy? That's the question I want to ask you, is why do you want to be wealthy? So many people start, when it comes to their wealth journey, one of the few questions I ask is, firstly, where are you now? A lot of people don't really know where they are now when it comes to their finances. But then I ask the question, well, where do you want to be in, say, 5 years or something like that? Why do you want to be wealthy? Most people don't know what they're working towards or what their next step is. So I'd love to hear in the comments section, why do you want to be wealthy? Why are you doing this? Brooke has said, don't want to be working until I'm 75 in order to afford retirement. Fantastic. Our goal for all our millennial clients is that they're in a position to retire or step back at 50. And if you don't want to retire at 50, fantastic. We just want to give you the option to be able to retire at 50. So thanks for that, Brooke. Here you go. Stephanie said, want to be able to retire early, be able to be in a position to work in the field I'm passionate about without financial stress and travel part-time. Well, that sounds good. That sounds good. Just be able to have that flexibility of work. Work because you want to, not because you have to. I do find that most millennials, get this question like, what is retirement? And sitting around at home watching Days of Our Lives all day is certainly not what most millennials want for retirement. They want to be active and involved, but really much living out what they want to live, live out their true life, their true calling, whatever it might be. So Yeah. Uh, so Rihanna said to have the freedom of work solely for fulfillment, to be able to visit overseas family whenever I like. Kim has said, same as Brooke, would also like to be free of the anxiety of not knowing will I have somewhere to live as I get older, so want to buy a house. Excellent. Excellent stuff. Alrighty. Blair says to have freedom to choose my lifestyle. Wonderful stuff. Okay, so let's go. All right, so let's focus. So if you want to retire early, if you want to live that good life, some of those amazing comments that have been put in there, what do you want? How do we do it? What are the 5 things that we need to be focused on when it comes to going from rags to riches? So step 1 is obviously rags. So I asked the question, as I put on there, and again, I'd love to hear your answers in the comments, and thank you for those who are contributing. It's greatly appreciated. What is the greatest investment you can make? Okay? What is the greatest investment you can make? You know, we get a few things like, could it be investing in crypto? Could it be investing in property? Could it be investing in shares? What is the greatest investment you can make when it comes to your finances? Oh, by the way, if you wonder why I'm looking that way, that's where I got another screen for more information. But what is the greatest investment you can make? Okay, I see a couple. Yep. So Brooke says investment in your own knowledge and growth. Excellent stuff. That is a very good one. In your own education, Rian says time. I tell you what, we've got a very smart group here today. I totally agree with Moses. I refine it. Kim said it used to be property. Not so sure about that anymore. Yeah, I'll come back to that in a bit more of a moment. But I think most of you are on the right track. In my view, it's in yourself and your ability to earn an income. Okay. So why focus on your income? Okay. This is where I think over 86.9% of Australians are struggling to build wealth. And it sounds so simple. The more you earn, the more you can save and invest. Now I could already feel a few of you rolling your eyes on the stream here and going, well, isn't that obvious? You know, the more you earn, the more you save and invest. That's so simple. Of course it is. That's like nada. But yet, whenever you look at any introductory cash flow or budgeting course or any like financial literacy 101, you have to go to what do they talk about? And often it's not about increasing your income. It's more about reducing your expenses. Now, don't get me wrong. I do understand the need to have a budget. I do believe in budgets. And I do believe in the need to reduce your expenses. But I don't think that's ultimately where your primary focus should be on, especially in this environment of high inflation and rising interest rates. What you should be focusing on is your income. So like I said, I've been doing budgeting for a very long time, and I think there's about 10% of people who have a genuine expense problem. What do I mean by that? One of my first ever clients, I was a grad and I was working in Melbourne at the time, and this person was very high in the legal profession. Won't give away too much, but the financial advisor, I was assisting the financial planner at the time, but they were set a budget of $200,000 a year and they couldn't stick to it, okay? If you want to know how to spend $200,000 a year, I've got some tips and information on here. And, and they blew their retirement savings. I think they started with over $2 million. Within 6 years, it was below $1 million. And then the discussions went from you're going to live a very comfortable lifestyle in retirement to you're probably going to need an age pension just to get by. $200,000 a year budget they were set, and they couldn't stick to it. And I'm like, well, I stopped traveling, doing our weekend trips down to Sorrento, which is about an hour away for those who don't live in Victoria. But then the financial planner was like, yeah, but you did 6 first-class trips to America, 2 to Europe, Japan, South Africa. I think Brazil was in there too. There was 80 grand blown straight away. So that's an example of a genuine expense problem. But I would argue that's actually, like I said, I highlight that because that's the exception, not the rule. I would suggest that most of you either have a structural problem, like money's coming in, but it's all tied into one account, and we don't know where everything's set up and so forth. But I think 60% of you actually focus on an income problem. And realistically, looking at ways to increase your income is what I think you should be focusing your time and energy on. So what level of income do you need? Again, it's a rough guide, and we're speaking to an Australian audience. If you are tuning in from overseas, it's going to be a very different number. But I would say that what I say to our clients is, if you're not earning $100,000 per annum from your primary job or business, you must have a plan to do this within the next 3 to 5 years. And only 13.1% of Australians earn $100,000 per annum. You need to get into this group. So we know a nurse, 5 years of experience, depends how much overtime they do. They could probably push, or night shifts really, probably could push 100 grand. Teachers is probably 5 to 7. But that's where the focus should be, is really on your income. Look at ways to increase your income rather than reduce expenses. And that's, may or may not be that tricky. I mean, $50 per hour, 40 hours a week is $100,000 per annum. And 40 hours per week equals, or 40 hours and you do 50 hours, which is a big week, that's $100,000 per annum as well. And I could probably suggest that virtually not every job, but there's a lot of jobs out there where, whether it's a restructure or maybe going from employed to self-employed, doing things like that, where you could get easily $40, $50 an hour and well and truly beyond. I know some babysitters that are making $30, $40 an hour and raking it in. So, I mean, there's definitely some options there. So, that's where I would be focusing on at this point in time. So why focus on income and expenses? There's a limit on how much you can cut your expenses, but income has much more potential. Cutting expenses can be detrimental to your health and well-being. Increasing income is abundant thinking. Cutting expenses is limited thinking. This is all about mindset, peoples. Thinking positively about the opportunities that are available to you. More income equals more opportunity for investing, amongst other things. And no one likes to be a cheap person. So be generous, and that comes again from focusing on your income. And again, if you focus your time and energy currently spent reducing your expenses to finding ways to increase your income, you will make it. So my questions to you is, will I be earning 100 grand per annum from my job or business now in the next 3 to 5 years? What skills do you need to obtain to get this? And this might be formal education, might not be formal education. There's a few different things there. What can I delegate to get more time and work to look after myself? And is there any expenses in my budget that I can cut? Definitely not saying ignore a budget. There's a gym membership you're not using, or a Netflix subscription you're not using. Netflix is not making a huge difference, but if there's expenses you can cut them. But again, focus purely on that income side of things. I'll just let you put in some comments there. Which one of those that you're going to do as a takeout from this section? Brooke says, yes, thank you. I've been saying 100K is the basic thing, just get by. Yeah, it probably is nowadays, especially if you've got family. With 2 young kids, kids are expensive. It's amazing. And says, foster a job and now hard to find someone willing to employ a 59-year-old female. That is true, but I think McDonald's was founded by Ray Kroc, and I think he was 58 at the time. So there's options there. And for the record, you would be able to access your super definitely at age 60. 59, no, I think you might miss out there, but definitely at 60, there's some options there. So Brooke works in recruitment and graduate jobs are offering minimum 80 to 100K. Yeah. Especially if you're in Melbourne or Sydney, it's a very expensive place to live. So definitely focus on there. Need to aim for 100K, Steph? Yep, some of the things. And even if that's too much of a jump for you, Focus on just increase your income 10 grand. What can you do to increase your income 10 grand? Is it asking for a pay rise? Is it looking for a similar job but at another employer? Because, a lot of employers, not all, I know my staff are listening to this, could walk into, don't pay their staff properly, so they can walk into another job and get an extra 10, 20, 30K. So there's an option there. Again, could be going from employed to self-employed or even self-employed back to employed. It's all very different. So, but even if you could increase your income in 2023 by another $10,000, that would be a good option too. So, shock to the system. Yeah, shock to the system didn't quite make sense, Steph. So I'm glad. Thanks for clarifying that. Awesome stuff. Cool. And thank you for those who mentioned the Eventbrite. Not sure what's happened and the link there. Not sure what's happening there, but I'm glad you have found us. Cool. Alrighty. So let's move on. Let's focus on retirement basics. Okay. Now this is all about retirement and retiring early. But I would suggest that one of the things that you need to focus on if you want to retire early is actually your super. Now that might be a little bit hard to get your to think about because why? Because the earliest you can access your superannuation is age 60. But if I want to retire at 50 or an early retirement, why do I need to focus on my superannuation? And there's three reasons for this. First one is, firstly, I believe it's the walk before you can crawl kind of thing. If you can't make a plan to retire at 60, then you're not going to be able to create a plan to retire at 50. So if you're someone that wants to retire early but is neglecting your superannuation, then sorry, it's not going to work. You're just going to trip up and fall over somewhere. Secondly, superannuation remains the most tax-effective way to invest. And I know for those who are looking to get into investing and things like that, well, the chances are you've already got 10, 20, 50, 100, 200K, whatever it might be, within your super that you can already invest. And there's certainly options that you could look at if you do want to get more engaged with your superannuation to invest within your super. Not necessarily a self-managed super fund. I'm not personally a big fan of those, but there's plenty of other options there where you can get more, you can learn about investing with your superannuation that you've currently got. But the third thing, probably the most crucial thing to think about is most people think when they retire at 50, they need to have enough money in their personal name to get them to survive for the rest of their life. And average life expectancy in Australia, I think, is about 83 off the top of my head. So 33 years that they need to focus on. That's actually not true. You only need enough to get from age 50 to age 60 when your superannuation kicks in. Okay? So we've gone from needing income for 33 years down to about 10 years potentially if we're focusing on age 50. So potentially that reduces it from $1.5, $2 million down to potentially 500,000. Depends on the numbers, things like that. So if you want to retire early, if you want to get passionate about investing, and obviously we're doing this Perla, so of course you're passionate about investing, I want you to be looking at how your superannuation is invested because 99 times out of 100, there's definitely some exceptions, but 99 times out of 100, what you can invest in your personal name, you can invest in super as well. Some property exceptions to that. Crypto, there's probably one or two where you could do crypto, I'm sure there is, but generally speaking, what you can invest in your personal name, index funds, shares, infrastructure, property, whatever, you can do in your superannuation as well. Cool. So how much do you need to retire at 50 when you, in your personal name, as I just said, enough to get you to 60 when you can access your superannuation. And this is just a little thing, and this is where, that's why I'm really passionate about helping millennials because, I've seen those people in their 50s and 60s who've got 50 grand in their super and nothing else. And I'll never forget this tradie where it was 57, bricklayer actually, 57, hands were stuffed, back was stuffed, wanted to retire, but, physically had to retire, but financially only had about 30 grand in his super and literally nothing else. And it's kind of like, well, you've got to look at Centrelink options. I can't remember if he had a house or not, but potentially a downsizing there, which is not that much. But I guess one little thing that I want every millennial listening to this to hear is the power of 30. So the question is, if you were to put in an extra $30 a week into your super over 30 years into a high growth fund earning 10% per annum, excluding tax at the moment, how much extra will you have in 30 years' time? Have a guess, put a number in the comments, because I'd love to hear what you think is how much extra would you have in your super if you were to do that? And I'm just going to give the stream a moment to catch up here to see some of these answers. Okay, still waiting for the answer. Brooke says 500. Not a bad guess. Express Highway 735, I love that name. 360K. Two very good answers there. See if any more is coming through. Joanne's gone 750. I love the ambition here because most people think, oh, it's only an extra 50K, 75, 100,000. But obviously, because you guys are with Perla, you're much smarter than the average. You've got a much higher level of financial literacy. The answer is actually 300,000. $30 a week over 30 years, an extra 300,000 in retirement. So if you are focusing on your income and getting it above 100 grand, because again, that's step one. If you're only earning 30, 40 grand a year, barely getting by, I wouldn't recommend doing this. But if it's an extra 300 extra, I hope that a lot of you could spare $30 a week that you could put into your super. And that is going to make a huge difference to your super. Again, that's on top of your employer contributions, which is currently 10.5% of your wage. So something to think about there. Here we go. We've got all the answers. Everyone's commenting now. I think the lag's about 60 seconds, actually, not the usual 30. So definitely something to think about. But like I said, why focus on super before investing? The same investments in your personal name, you can invest in super, with some exceptions. If you cannot come up with a plan to retire at 60, forget trying to retire at 50. Master your super before trying to invest in your personal name. You get 10.5% of your wage put into super each year. So if you're earning 100 grand, 5th, 7-year nurse or teacher, you're getting $10,500 put into your super each year. And that extra $30 a week you're going to put in there as well gets you closer to $12,000 in total. And it remains the most tax-effective investment structure you have, superannuation. If there's a legal and ethical way that I could look at to reduce your tax, I'm going to be looking at it, because tax is, for most people, certainly those earning 100 grand it will be, is going to be the greatest expense of your life. It's not your house, it's not your kids, it's actually the tax you will pay. So no point of earning 10% on 100 grand if you've got to pay 40, 50% in tax back. Okay, that's why there's two parts of this discussion, and I'll actually cover that a bit more later. So put in the comments what you're going to do, what are your takeaway points from that section. But I think some questions to ask yourself is, how much is in your super and how are you on track? Now, note I didn't ask who your super is with. I'm asking how your super is invested. There is a big difference between the two, and I appreciate the advertising that goes out there. But at the end of the day, you can be in the best super fund in the world, 5-star gold rating by CanStar, whoever. But if you've got that invested 100% in cash, you're not going to have a comfortable lifestyle in retirement. You've got to focus on, again, which super fund that you're with. With limited exceptions nowadays, I'm going to be a bit controversial here and say it doesn't really matter. which super that you're with. What matters is how it is invested. Go back 10, 20 years, different story. It was a huge difference, but now they're all virtually very similar. What's much more important is how your super is invested. Should you put super into your super? And crucially, does your super align with my values? Obviously, ethical investing is huge nowadays, and what I think is ethical is very different to what you think is ethical. What are the differences there? Does that align with your values? Food for thought there. So I've got a few comments coming through. Stephanie doesn't have anything in super. We can certainly change that. Doesn't matter where you are now. It's where you're going to be heading towards. That's what you need to focus on. But definitely getting started is the hardest part. So if we can help there, that would be fantastic. Cool. All right. I'm just conscious of time. I know we're halfway through. But yeah, keep those comments coming through. It's great to see them. Alrighty, step 3. So we've had, whoops, I skipped a stage there. We've got RAS, we've got retirement basics. Let's talk about the residence. Residence, obviously, I think of as property, because the question I have is, if you had 500,000, would you invest in property or shares? And I'd be interested to see your thoughts on that one, and would it change if you had 500,000 to invest? And again, because this is definitely lagging by about 60 seconds, I will skip ahead here. So I would say if you had 50 grand, personally, I would lean towards property before shares. Now, also again, don't know your situation, everyone's different, but I would lean towards property simply because of the leverage that you get with property. So let's say we did have 50 grand and we put that 50 grand into Perla. There we go. We put it into Perla and we picked the best index funds and we had a 20% gain on those funds. You would have made $10,000, which is not too bad. However, if you took that same $50,000 and put it on a deposit on a $500,000 property, which I must admit, is not getting you much these days, but stick with me for the example, and that property only went up by 5%, you've made $25,000. So you can see that power of leverage and how it can make a huge difference. Now, obviously, we're seeing the negative side of leverage, that if that property did go down by 5%, you lose $25,000. That's obviously something that you need to consider. But I still have definitely a preference for property over shares. I have just seen the comment property has higher ROI than average. I actually disagree with that. Dollar for dollar, shares outperform property every day of the week on average. But if you were to look at, once we factor in leverage when it comes into it, then property, when you're starting to build your wealth, property, in my opinion, still remains significantly better. Yep, I'm seeing Brooke says shares on average return 10%. Yep. Shares property, 50K in property. Yep, excellent stuff. Kim's asked, what would you get in property with 50K? Excellent question. I'll come back to that one in a moment. So I want to think about this as your first house, okay? Your first house, sorry to break it to you, your first house is not going to be a McMansion. And this is where I say getting into your first house, not a home. This is a stepping stone to building wealth. It's not going to be in the best street. It's not going to have the best kitchen. It's not going to have the best bathroom. It possibly may not even be in the best location, but it's a stepping stone to get into the property market. And that first step, in my opinion, is the hardest. I'm going to talk about the incentives to answer Kim's question of how you can get into the property market and why you only need ultimately a 12-month mindset. So again, a house on a home. First house is not your forever home, but you need to have a first house to either get into your luxury home or rent vesting, which is something I personally do. And this is where you've got to be smart about your first home, because it is, yes, it's a house and you've got to live in it, but you've only got to live in it for a certain period of time. So there's also this investment component to it as well. And most people think that, and when I look at, let me take a step back. When we look at the incentives for you to get into the property market, they are quite significant. Now, and let me just make something abundantly clear to you too. If you were to buy an investment property first before your own home, you wouldn't get access to any of these schemes that I've got up on the screen. Wouldn't get access, you'd lose all of them and you'd lose them forever. But if you were to buy a property, your own home first, and again, using Victoria as an example, they do vary from state to state, so check your states for what they're offering. But stamp duty exemptions up to $31,070. So Victoria, no stamp duty payable on a purchase up to $600,000. First home owners grant, if you decide to build, there's another $10,000 there. First home super saver scheme, which is a national one. I do believe that everyone should be using their super to save for their first home. If that's something that's new to you, definitely have a chat. It's definitely something we could look at. And then the first home loan deposit scheme, which saves you LMI or lender's mortgage insurance. Now, I do acknowledge that I'm going through these very quickly for the sake of time, but if these concepts are new to you, again, we can have a chat about it later, and we can talk about how we can help you with your situation. But the point is, there are up to $75,000 in incentives in Victoria for you to get into the property market for your own home. And the rules vary from scheme to scheme, but generally speaking, you've just got to live in that property for the first 12 months. After 12 months, you could look to rent it out, you could sell it, you can set it on fire. You can do whatever you want to do with it, ultimately, but you've just got to live in that property for 12 months. That's what you've got to consider. And again, you only need a 5% deposit to get into the property market. So we're still a train of thoughts, and I see this a lot of the time, actually, particularly, dare I say it, with nurses too, and I can think of one situation where client had about 60, 70,000 saved up, and they were thinking, I need a 20% deposit. That's what I've been told, so I'm not going to be able to buy a property for 5 years. And I was kind of like, well, actually, with that deposit, you can get in the property market within 12 months. And it's through the first home loan deposit scheme, it's now called the First Home Owners Guarantee, where the government will pay your lender's mortgage insurance so you don't have to. So rather than needing a 20% deposit for your first home, you only need a 5% deposit for your first home. Again, limited schemes, there is income limits and asset property price thresholds. A lot of T's and C's about this. This is, again, we're being very high level here for a reason. I just want to get you thinking about the potential options that are out there. And again, 12 months, you've got to be in that property for 12 months. There are T's and C's associated with that. So again, get advice before you lock anything in. But again, usually you only have to stay in your house for 12 months and then you've got options that you can consider. Okay. So why buy your first house? Because again, I generally say with most people who've never bought a property in the first at all, they are closer to buying their first home than what you think. You are not stuck for life with it. You only need to stay there for 12 months. So a lot of people say, I've got travel plans, I don't want to impact things. Great. Just got to stay there for 12 months. After 12 months, you can rent it out and travel. No issue with that at all, subject to some T's and C's, but you need to, you're not stuck for life if you buy a property. You still have flexibility. In fact, getting into the property market earlier is going to give you more options later. Got the power of leverage, incentives up to $75,000. And hey, you don't have to live with your parents anymore, which for me personally, as much as I do love my mum and dad, I could not think of anything worse than living back home. So with this one, put in the comments what your takeaways from this section are. But how much do I need? But ask yourself, how much do I need to buy my first home? Because again, if you're looking, I'll use Geelong just because it's local. Sydney, Melbourne more expensive. The rest of the country probably a bit less. But if you are looking to buy up to $600,000, again, you only need $30,000 deposit plus a few costs. I'd round it up probably to 35, 40 for your first home. That's what you might need. That can get you a lot of options in Geelong. Can I live in a more affordable area for 12 months to get into the market, particularly for Sydney clients and even Melbourne to a lesser extent? Trying to get in those inner suburbs is completely unaffordable for a nurse or a teacher, just the way it is, unfortunately. But would it be beneficial for you to move out to the outer suburbs, or even using Sydney, whether it's Newcastle, Central Coast, Gosford, whatever it might be, live there for 12 months and then rent that out, that current property, and then move back into the Sydney CBD, enjoy the lifestyle, no travel, etc., etc. And who should I speak to about getting into the markets? And let me give you a strong hint here. I wouldn't go to your bank. Speak to a financial planner or mortgage broker about some options there. So, cool. So how am I going for time? 1:10. I'm doing good. So if you've got any comments there about that, love to hear from you there. But yeah, going back to Kim's comment, yes, you can definitely get into the property market with 50K if it's your first home and eligible under that 5% deposit scheme. If you're not eligible for the 5% deposit scheme, for example, you've got to be a citizen to be eligible for that scheme, or if you've sold a property and trying to re-enter the market, it's a real challenge at 50 grand because no incentives, no stamp duty, nothing like that. So definitely, if you can get in there, that would be fantastic. Blair says, for any Kiwis on the line, you can bring across KiwiSaver as a contribution to First Home Super Scheme with some super providers. I definitely know you can bring a KiwiSaver across with some providers. Does that count towards First Home Super Safe Scheme? I actually have not heard that, Blair. So, and my wife's a Kiwi, so there's some merit in that actually. But I'd like to, yeah, interesting. Definitely double check that one. I actually have not heard anyone do that. So Blair's bringing the breaking news here. So fantastic. So awesome stuff. Let's move on. Thanks for that, Blair. Let's move on to step 4, returns and risk. And look, this section, I could probably dedicate another hour to. It's such a big section and so much information to go through. Because how do you build wealth from a low base? That's the question. Like, you know, I see a lot in financial planning actually. Like people say, you know, if you've only got 150 grand, you can still build wealth and things like that. Well, I know for a lot of everyday millennials that you actually should, you know, trying to get to 150 grand is actually quite difficult. So how do we get to that point? So the first aim is to control $1 million in assets, then aim to own $1 million in assets. And there is a big difference between the two. It's on my next slide. Control assets you possess but have a debt associated with them. This is the concept of leverage. Own means you possess the asset and or have enough equity in the asset. Okay, so that's the difference between control and own. So if we want to control $1 million in property, for example, we just need 2 properties of $500,000. That's step 1, controlling. Step 2 is then paying off that debt, whether you can pay it off the traditional way, keep paying off the loan. Personally, I'd rather wait for those properties to increase in value, sell one, use that to clear the debt on the other. Own means you possess the asset and or have enough equity in the asset to have $1 million. So that's the 2 steps that you're focusing on. And this is where the lesson of leverage comes into it. So if you did have that 100 grand and had 3 investment choices, super, shares or property, which one would you choose? So I've changed the numbers here slightly here. But you can see with super, and I've gone a ridiculously high return for super of 15%, just to highlight the point. But then again, the debt of 4% is probably a little bit low in this market, but we'll stick with me here. But again, because there's no leverage in super, it is 100,000. That's all. If you've got 100,000, that's all you can control. Shares, you can technically gear up to 50%, although some do 70, most do 50. So if you had 100 grand, you could get up to 200,000 you could invest. But if you had 100 grand, you could buy $1 million property. Again, with some T's and C's and so forth. Again, this is not about are the numbers perfect. This is just about getting the concept here. And shares, we've got a return of 12%. So property has the lowest anticipated return, but it's got the highest leverage. And you can see over the first 12 months that actually it is property that gives you the greatest return, even after factoring in the interest or the cost of the debt. Okay? So I always find it interesting that people say that you need to be debt free. And definitely you need to get to a point in the future that you need to be debt free. I would not be comfortable with you having 900 grand in debt when you're at age 60. But if you're in 20, 30, 35 and you've got a secure income, and particularly stress secure income, both from a job perspective, but also from if you're entering maternity leave in particular, that if your income is secure, relatively secure, then debt can be your friend, okay? Yes, it can end badly if you're not doing what you're doing. Absolutely it can. But we can see over the long term that if you use debt wisely, the net profit over 1, 5 and 10 years definitely favours the property side of things, even though it has the lowest anticipated return. Okay? Again, please note a lot of assumptions with those numbers. It's the concept rather than the specific calculations that are important. And please also understand the downside of leverage, which we're seeing at the moment, which can maximize your losses as well. You need to understand the downside risk before making any investment. You can't control your returns, you can only control your actions. Again, another big, actually I've got it right here, sorry. What is risk? Because everyone focuses, I do believe that most people don't understand what risk is, okay? Investment risk. Most people think, I'll get 10% returns on average. Fantastic. But there's a risk there you're going to lose 30% in a year, GFC, COVID, something like that was to happen. And most people don't think of that. They just think, I've got to get 10%. Sweet, happy days. That doesn't work like that. And that's just investment risk. There's plenty of risk that you need that will impact your ability to build wealth. Some examples include recession, injury or illness, rising interest rates, tax legislation, unexpected expenses, scams, or low returns. There are plenty of things there that you need to manage risk. So I want to go back to the question Zoe asked. If I had 500,000, are you saying we should buy 2 homes as require less deposit? Maybe not a 500. Yeah. The issue is, and it depends where you are at with your life stage, but putting 50 grand into a property is actually a fairly aggressive, high risk strategy. Which is why I've never ever recommended someone take their super and put it all onto a property. Never done it. It's terrible advice. Why? Because one property in one location is very high risk. So 25, 30, 35, yeah, sure, you've got to take those risks, that's fine. But if you're 55, 60, 65 with $1 million, well, actually it doesn't matter what age you are, if you've got $1 million, putting all that just into one property is actually very high risk. And that's why I say diversifying across multiple assets. Again, this is where there's shares, index funds across a few different industries, bit of property, infrastructure, cash, term deposit bonds, whatever it might be. Having that diversification, I know it's a very fancy finance word, but it is so important that you need to consider. And this is where, again, having this discussion about risk, how much risk do you want to take? How old are you and what other sources of income you'll have? Discussions I have with a 25-year-old, very different to what I have with someone who's 55. And spread out your risk and you will maximize your return, okay? So to go back to the previous question, if I had 50 grand, I would start with property because I want to be aggressive and take more risk. But if I had 500, $1 million, I'd probably look more towards shares because again, you get much more diversification. Shares / managed funds / index funds because we want to have able to spread out our risk across multiple different companies or industries or things like that. Does that make sense? If you could say yes in the comments that makes sense, that would be fantastic. If you could say no, it doesn't make sense, I can spend more time on it, I am conscious of time, but I can spend a bit more time on it if needs be. But I do want to, defending your assets is actually quite important as well. But I do want to talk about this, and again, I'm very conscious of time, and especially when I'm talking about risk. And I'm going to be putting a trigger warning here, because back in the 28th of June this year, I was involved in a pretty nasty car crash. And I'm going to put some pictures up, and if this does trigger you, you may want to just temporarily step back or something, or just turn off the screen. But I was driving home driving out on a Tuesday evening, down that road, as you can see, and behind you at that intersection, not that white car you can see in the screen, but some insert your favourite swear word here, derogatory swear word here, went through that crossing that you can see behind us. And this is a residential. I would have been doing 40. I'm guessing he would have done 70, and has completely taken out the front of my car. Now, that crash looks bad, but I have to remind people that's actually side-on contact. It's not front-on contact. I haven't gone into him. He's gone across me, he or she, I don't know. It's a hit-run. He never stopped, or she never stopped, but took out the front of my car. And I don't think it's too controversial to suggest if I was half a second later and that car hits my driver's side door, I'm probably not going to be here, or I wouldn't be delivering this presentation to you. And, my wife was 36 weeks pregnant with my second child. I would not have meant my second child. And so this is something that I'm really passionate about, because managing risk, I did not expect driving out a residential street, which I've done hundreds and hundreds of times before, like this is within a kilometre of my house, that could have either nearly killed me or would cause serious injury. But that's how quickly life can change, and this is when we're talking about managing risk is so critically important. So my question to you all to think about is, what would have been more important for myself and my family? Having car insurance, which I paid $1,100 per annum for and received $9,500 back for the cost of the car, which, for the record, I had my crash on the 28th of June. I only got that $9,500 last week. So 4 months I had to wait for that. Or is it more important to have personal insurance, premiums of $3,000, mostly inside super, and my family would have received $1 million of life, or TPD, or income protection, or trauma cover? So personal insurance, like when it comes to building wealth, to use a sports analogy, everyone focuses on, 10, 20% returns, get the best returns, rah, 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 rah. But this is when we're talking about risk is actually more important. So your returns are effectively your offense, or scoring goals or whatever, and then your risk is actually your defense. What happens if things go wrong? That's actually just as important. That's why having both of these discussions is crucial. And for the record, those are saying if the TAC would have covered me, the average TAC payout is $170,000, which I can show you with my wife and 2 kids under 2 would not have gone anywhere. So risk and return are equally important. Returns is offense, risk is defense. You need to have both to build wealth. So why focus on returns and risk? Risk can accelerate your wealth journey, but can also blow it up. What's the point of making 50% returns? You have to pay 50% in tax. It makes you think more than just you. You've got to think of those around you, and you just don't know what's around the corner. Okay? So questions to ask yourself, and I know there's a lot of that information. We've gone through it very quickly. I know I'm running low on time, but question I want to ask yourself is, what sort of investor are you? How comfortable are you with investment risk? Do you understand the downside risk of any investment? How much tax will I pay if I get good returns? Should I structure things better? Why do I insure my car or house when I don't insure my most important asset, which is yourself? And do you have wills and powers of attorney? I'll skip that one because of time, but that's very important too. So great to get 10% returns, that's fantastic. But if you're not managing the risk, then it's pointless. To be honest, you're just leaving money on the table. Awesome. Okay, so I've got 6 minutes left. I'm going to punch through the final step, which is step 5, riches. And the riches line now means different things to different people. I'm just going to call it $1 million because $1 million at 6% equals $60,000 per annum, which I would suggest should comfortably cover your living expenses, excluding property and children. If you pay off your mortgage and get the kids out of your house, then your living costs can be actually pretty, you could get away comfortably with $60,000 per annum. But don't stop at $1 million. You know, what would the retirement line be in 30 years' time? Like $1 million generally would get you a comfortable lifestyle now, assuming you got your own home. But once I retire, I'm 33, it's probably going to be closer to $2-3 million. So keep building your wealth. And I want to go back to this question, why do you want to be wealthy? And I know you've left some great comments here at the start, and I know a lot of you focused on yourself, which is fantastic, but I want you to think bigger than that. And some of you indicated this in your comments, but I want you to think bigger than just you, because I believe there's 3 levels of wealth. There's wealth for yourself, there's wealth for your family, and wealth for a community or cause that is bigger than you. Okay? And most people don't get to step 1. So if that's where you're at, fantastic. This is not about where you are now, this is where you want to be. I just want to give you some things to think about. But wealth for yourself is important, but that's only step 1. And then, wealth for your family, now I've got a parent with 2 young kids, I'm thinking about that more and more now. But wealth or a community or cause that is bigger than you. I'm so passionate about this. I know Glenn James of My Millennial Money is really passionate about this as well. But what is there a cause or injustice in the world that makes you go, grr? There's plenty of options there that can be changed. If you've got some things that do make you go, grr, I'd love to hear them in the comments. But my question is, what would be, if you could write some 5, 6, 7-figure checks for that community or cause that's bigger than you, how would that make you feel? And that's what I want you to be thinking towards. That's the bigger game here. You've got $1 million invested. I'm sorry, big deal, big deal. One of my earlier clients had $3 million invested. And look, he's a nice guy, don't get me wrong, but he was 72 years old and never lived out of home. If you want a great way to build wealth, just stay at home. Don't move out of home. You'll get a big life there. But his life, again, lovely guy, but his life was just small. And no children, nothing outside of that. And ultimately, I think his wealth would have actually gone to the government. Because I don't think there was any relatives that he could have given from. I can't remember, but that could be something. You've got a big $1 million, big deal. How are you using that? That is more important. Brooke said housing prices. Yeah. How would we, no regulation about this, feel quite helpless. I want to afford my own home, yes, but I want everyone in communities they live in to be able to afford a home. Yes, fantastic. So amazing if you could. One of the biggest reasons why we don't, house prices are so high is because there's not enough properties built. There's other reasons, I know that, but that's the biggest one. If you're able to build properties, especially if you do it in a ways that, I think it's a national rental scheme. No, that's not the right acronym, but I know it's something along those lines. If you could do that in areas to help people out, fantastic. That's an awesome one, Brooke. Well done. Sokwan says protecting children. Yes, that's definitely a big one. If you could write some financials there, that would be amazing. So why focus on being rich? Being rich is more than just money. What's the point of being rich if you're unhappy and unhealthy? I haven't touched on that a lot, but yeah, I know a lot of rich people that are unhealthy and unhappy and unable to enjoy it. Being rich is a responsibility of others. It's more than just you, and most people have no clue about what they would do if they were rich. So the questions I would ask yourself is, what would I do if money wasn't an object? Where would I travel? Who would I help? Who would I spend time with? And then the question is, why am I not doing this now? because most of you probably could do a fair bit of this now already, even if it's on a small scale, then don't think you have to have $1 million to be able to contribute to that charity or cause that's important to you. How are you going to stay motivated and focused to reach this goal when things do get tough? And am I focusing on more than just myself and money? So the longer I do financial advice, the more I realize that money, it matters, but it also doesn't matter. And there you have it. That is the 5 steps, what I call the rags to riches roadmap. So, and I know we're running out of time, but I just want to ask a question. How are you feeling right now? If you could put that in the comments, that would be amazing. And if you got something out of this, can you do me a favor? Can you just hit that like button as well? Because I'd love to be, again, able to share this with more people. But how are you feeling right now about your situation? Hopefully you're feeling excited. Hopefully you can see some of these things are achievable, but also it's probably normal to feel overwhelmed or frustrated and unknow what to do or what to do next. And I guess the Amanda said she's on track. Fantastic. Very good to hear that, Amanda. But if you don't feel on track or if you're struggling, just remember you don't have to do this yourself. We can help you at all stages of this process. And a few more comments coming through. Stephanie says, happy you're learning this now, but feeling a little behind at 25, but keen to get better. Awesome stuff, you know. Don't have to have everything figured out at 25. I certainly didn't. It's a great way to get started. Rian says, inspired. Alan says, when investing in the stock market is an ETF, a good way to start your investment journey, build a stable foundation instead of individual shares. Personal preference, Alan. I don't like saying, I know I said about property versus shares, but there's more than one ways to roam. And when we're talking with someone about their situation, some people build wealth through property, some people do it through shares, most people do a bit of both. Shares, managed funds, ETFs, similar things. So really a personal preference, that one. But if you are feeling overwhelmed, so I got sidetracked there with the comments, thanks for those, keep them coming. Don't feel like you have to do this yourself. We can help you at each stage of the process, because if you are someone who wants to do it yourself, fantastic, that is an option for you. But we do have a get it done for you. You can have someone on your side who can help you through every step of the process, specialize in everyday millennials, do paperwork and research for you, speak on your behalf. You know, the good thing about finance is you can delegate most of this. I wish you could delegate fitness, because I hate fitness. I hate doing push-ups. You can probably tell I don't do a lot of them. Hate running, hate doing anything physically related. Not for me at all. I wish there was a way that I could get my personal trainer to do all my running or my push-ups, and I get all the benefits. Fortunately, that doesn't work like that, but it does work with your finances. Don't feel like you have to do this yourself. Because at the end of the day, if information is all that we need, then we ought to be billionaires with six-pack abs. I go back to where I started. Like, the last thing I want you to do is give you more information, because information is not what you need. You need a roadmap and someone to take you on that roadmap in order to take you to move you forward with your finances. So if you do want to have a chat with us, let us know. I'll put the link in now. You can book in a complimentary chat at masteryourmoneynow.com.au/get started, and we'd love to hear more from you. We don't work with everyone. We don't work with people who are not coachable, once offset, have no accountability, and don't appreciate the value of advice. Our ideal members are listed out there. We're looking for everyday people that are fun, that are aspirational, and want a long-term partnership. And again, it doesn't matter where you are now. What matters is where you want to be and whether you're willing to do what it takes to get there. We'd love to have a chat. But look, if that's something you're interested in, fantastic. If not, I hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you're on your own journey doing things yourself, fantastic, great stuff. The priority is that we get people to be able to a lot of our world problems, not all of them, but a lot of them would be helped if more people had more financial education. And again, I want to thank Perla for this opportunity because I know they're passionate about financial education as well, and which has given me the opportunity to present here. I know they've got some other webinars with other speakers as well, which you should definitely check out as well. But again, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen to this presentation. It's greatly appreciated. Again, if you liked us, give us a comment, like on YouTube or on your social media. We're going to be doing more of these into 2023, and I'm very excited to do that with you. But again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your comments. Thank you, Stephanie, for your kind words. And if there's anything we can do to help, let us know. Our contact details are there. We'd love to have a chat. But enjoy your Wednesday afternoon. Stay safe, stay warm, stay happy, and I hope you can continue your journey on the Rags to Riches roadmap. Take care. Bye for now. Bye.